Hi everybody, and great job on your first week of the 66-day challenge. Just reviewing everyone's nutritional tracking, and I will individually respond to you or send you a video or a message today or tomorrow. But I wanted to touch base on macro counting because when you signed up for this challenge, one of the criteria was we're going to be digging into the macros, and each and every one of you has set calories and they have set macros. And I will say most of you, say probably 98% of you, are very balanced. So it means you have a balance between protein, carbs, and fats. So we're going to just break it down really simplistically here. What is a macro and why is it important? Macronutrients are the nutrients that our body needs to run, but we need them in larger quantities. So they are our proteins, our fats, and our carbohydrates. We need to keep track of them because our body responds differently to each one of those, and my body's going to respond differently to those macros than yours is going to. So that's where it kind of gets a little tricky, finding out how each one of you responds to that. The other thing with macro counting, it really helps us to understand, specifically me teaching you, where your calories are coming from. So when I look at your nutrition chart and what you've been tracking, I'm looking at everything you've eaten in the past 5 to 6 days, and I get a good idea of definitely you're staying on track or you like those carbs. And then I can understand why you might be stuck in the rut that you've been in for a while, or why things aren't shifting or your goals aren't being met, depending what your goals are. So with macro counting, we can look at that and then we can tweak things around and shift things and ideally, hopefully get you where you need to be. So calorically, how we get those numbers is per every gram of a carb, protein, and fat, there's a calorie attached to it. So for every gram of carbohydrate, there is 4 calories. For every gram of protein, there's 4 calories. And for every gram of fat, there's 9 calories. So when you start to look at like a protein bar having 10 grams of protein, the calories for that is, do the math. That's how they work up the calories, and that's how we figure that out. So it's really important to kind of understand macro counting because it helps you to understand where your calories are coming from and why those calories are important. So not all calories are created equal. As you know, as grown adults, not all food is equal because we can eat, all vegetables and still not hit our macros, or we can hit our macros without even touching any vegetables, but that's not good either. So with the macro counting, we have to keep it simple, and you want to think of whole foods, healthy foods. I kind of like to say if it doesn't have a mother and didn't come from the ground, it's probably not the best thing to eat. So ideally, that would be great if we could all do that on a daily basis, but unfortunately, with our busy lives and just how we've been conditioned to live, that's really more difficult than it should be. So with everybody's nutrition plan, you will have noticed that there is very little wheat, gluten, there's very little dairy, there's very little processed foods. Okay, so the idea is to get your palate changed over to more healthier options. When I give you recipes, it's to change your mindset and maybe try something new that your taste buds haven't had yet, or that might be interesting and you might find out that you actually like it. So don't be afraid to try something new and branch out a little bit. But always ask yourself, is what is on my plate whole and raw and as natural as I could get it. So when you cut your plate in half, let's draw a picture here, and I am not an artist, okay? So here's your plate. Okay, ideally, you only really need to cut your plate in half. And one side is going to be meat, and the other side will be plants. Okay, meat and plants. Now, if you're vegetarian or vegan, that has to shift a little bit. But there's ways to get your protein in there as well. It's just harder. All right, so as we all grew up, we grew up with the food pyramid, and we grew up of we have to have a starch. We're Pennsylvania Dutch. We have to have a potato or corn. Not so. If you stick primarily to that half of a plate of meat and a plant, you're going to do really well. Now, with the snack side of it, yes, we do want to get your fruits in there as well, and you should have about 2 to 3 fruits a day, and that is on your meal plan. So make sure you're getting those as well. So if you are finding yourself that you are straying a little bit from it, that's okay, but be mindful of why you're doing it. So there's a lot of psychology that comes into our nutrition as well, and that's for a whole nother video, because I could just keep talking and talking about that. But a lot of this and a lot of our outside influence are triggers to how we eat. So as soon as we can recognize those triggers, the better habits we can form and realize that I really didn't want that piece of whatever. I was just triggered by it, so I need to figure out another way. So we need to change that habit. All right, if you have any questions, please message me. Have a great Friday, everybody. Do the work.